ब्रह्माणं विदधाति पूर्वं यो वै वेदांस प्रहिणोति तस्मै तगुंहदेवमात्मबुद्धिर्प्रकाशम् मुमुक्षुर्वै शरणमहं प्रपद्ये। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। Divya Atman, today is the most auspicious day of the birth anniversary of Dr. Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan, a philosopher, scholar, exemplary teacher and politician. He was the first Vice President of India and the second President of India. He dedicated his life towards education and shaping up of the youth of the country, and his contributions in the field of education are exemplary. Hence, this day is dedicated to him as the Teacher's Day. Upon this most auspicious day, let us discuss about his thoughts. Man is a complex multidimensional being, including within him different elements of matter, life, consciousness, intelligence, and the divine spark. He is free when he acts from the highest level and uses the other elements for the realization of his purpose. But when he is on the level of objective nature, when he doesn't recognize his distinction from not self, he becomes a slave to the mechanism of nature. But even when he falsely identifies himself with the objective universe and feels that he is subjected to the necessities of nature, he is not without hope, for the one spirit operates at all levels of being. Even matter is a manifestation of the Supreme. There is an element of spontaneity and creativity inexplicable in terms of the mechanical forces even in the lowest forms of nature. Each plane of our being has its own consciousness, its surface thoughts, its habitual ways of feeling, thought and action. The ego should not persist in retaining its obscure and limited consciousness, which is a distortion of its own true nature. When we subdue the senses and keep them under control, the flame of spirit burns bright and clear, like a lamp in the windless place. The light of consciousness stands in its own nature, and the empirical self with its shifting tides of experience is controlled by buddhi, in which is reflected the light of consciousness. Then we rise above the play of Prakriti and see the real self from which creative forces arise. We cease to belong to that which is moved about and are no more helpless tools of nature. We are free participants of the world above into the world below. Nature is an order of determinism, but not a closed order. Forces of spirit may break upon and change its course. Every act of the self is a creative one, while all acts of the not self are truly passive. It is in our inner life that we confront primary reality, the deeds of being. The law of karma holds in the realm of the not self, where heredity, biological and social, holds, but in the subject is the possibility of freedom, of triumph over the determinism of nature, over the compulsion of the world. Man, the subject, should gain mastery over the man, the object. Object indicates determinism from without. Subject means freedom in determination. The ego, in its self-confinement, in its automatism, physical and social, is a distortion of the true subject. The law of karma can be overcome by the affirmation of the freedom of spirit. The cosmic forces to which man is exposed represents lower prakriti, but his spirit can burst into the circle of nature and realize its kinship with the divine. Our bondage consists in our dependence on something alien. When we rise above it, we can make our nature the medium for the incarnation of the spiritual. Through struggle and suffering, man can pass from his freedom to choose good or evil to the higher freedom that abides in the steadfastly chosen good. Liberation is a return to inward being, to subjectivity. Bondage is enslavement to the object world, to necessity, to dependence. Nature doesn't absolutely determine. Karma is a condition, not a destiny. It's only one of the 5 factors involved in the accomplishment of any act, which are adhisthana, or the basis or center from which we work, karta, doer, karana, or the instrumentation of nature, chesta, or the effort, and daiva, or fate. The last is the power, or powers other than human, the cosmic principle which stands behind, modifying the work and disposing of its fruits in the shape of act and its reward. We must make a distinction between that part which is inevitable in the makeup of nature, where restraint doesn't avail, and the part where it could be controlled and molded to our purpose. There are certain factors in our lives which are determined for us by forces over which we have no control. We do not choose how or when or where or in what condition of life we are born. On the theory of rebirth, even these are chosen by us. It is our past karma that determines our ancestry, heredity, and environment. But when we look from the standpoint of this life, we can say that we are not consulted about our nationality, race, parentage, or social status. But subject to these limitations, we have freedom of choice. Life is like a game of breeze. We do not invent the game or design the cards. We didn't frame the rules, and we cannot control the dealing. The cards are dealt out to us, whether they be good or bad. To that extent, determinism rules. But we can play the game well or play it badly. A skillful player may have a poor hand and yet win the game. A bad player may have a good hand and yet make a mess of it. Our life is a mixture of necessity and freedom, chance and choice. By exercising our choice properly, we can control steadily all the elements and eliminate altogether the determinism of nature. While the movements of matter, the growth of plants, and the acts of animals are controlled more completely, man has understanding which enables him to cooperate consciously with the work of the world. He can approve or disapprove, give or withhold his consent to certain acts. If he doesn't exercise his intelligent will, he is acting in a way contrary to his humanity. If he acts blindly according to his impulses and passions, he acts more like an animal than a man. Being human, he justifies his actions. Some of our acts are our own only seemingly. The sense of spontaneity is only apparent. We sometimes carry out suggestions given to us in the hypnotic condition. We may believe that we think, feel, and will the acts, but in so doing, we may be giving expression to the suggestions conveyed to us during the hypnotic state. What is true of the hypnotic situation is true of many of our acts, which may seem spontaneous but are really not so. We repeat the latest given opinions and believe that they are all the result of our own thinking. So spontaneous acting is not compulsive activity to which the individual is driven by his own isolation or helplessness. It is the free acting of the total self. The individual should become transparent to himself, and the different elements should reach a fundamental integration for spontaneous or creative activity to be possible. It is man's duty to control his rajas and tamas by means of his sattva nature, which seeks for the truth of things and the right law of action. But even when we act under the influence of our sattva nature, we are not entirely free. Sattva binds us quite as much as rajas and tamas. Only our desires for truth and virtue are nobler. The sense of ego is still operative. We must rise above our ego and grow into the supreme self of which the ego is an expression. When we make our individual being one with the Supreme, we rise above nature with its three modes, become Trigunatita and freed from the bonds of this world. Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasisyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.